we were going to play a 5-4-1 that game / 5-2-3. And this is going to gut me for saying this because I'm a big Tikisha and I hate Sporting. I was showing our backline videos of Sporting. When you get to CPL, it's like everyone's at this level for a reason.
While you were the connection between the player and the coach, those players, like that connection with yourselves and like the new players at Halifax.
That is one of the biggest statements so far in this pod is one thing that I took away as a coach. For me, your biggest endorser or co-signer is someone that's played for you. You know, we have like an open mic night where I think last year they called it Pints with Patrice. So they allowed
That's a good name.
Yeah, they let all the fans come to this brewery.
And they just see Patrice. Hi.
It would have been, he could have. He definitely could have taken it there, but.
Do you love the Premier League? Because I know I do. And here at the Footy Culture, we are here to bless you with an exclusive discount from our friends at Fubo TV, where you could stream all the Premier League matches live in 4K. Do you love watching Heung-min Son, Bukayo Saka, Manchester United? All of that is available to stream exclusively here in Canada on Fubo TV. So hit our link in the bio for that exclusive offer. Now let's get into the action.
Welcome back, Footy Culture fam, to another episode, special one. Here with the usual crew, but we also have a very special guest today, Vaughan Soccer Club legend and current Halifax assistant coach, Jorden Feliciano. Jorden, thanks for coming by. Welcome to the studio. Excited to have you here today. Some good stories, some good fun. Let's dive right into it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having
me. Yeah. Anytime. Obviously here, Chris as well. And behind the cam, the usual gents, Dan and Dave.
How's it going, everyone? What's up?
Missing a couple folks today, but we'll make do with our very special guest today, Jorden. Obviously, getting right into it. Jorden, so when it comes to, obviously your coaching career, how did that kind of get started? Like, what was your kind of first inspiration to get into coaching?
Probably, Jose Mourinho, right around the time that he had won back-to-back UEFA Cup and Champions League with Porto. I was 18 and 19 years old at the time and loved football and always had a knack for the game in my brain, but not my body. So I could get into this without having to play. And then coaching came along around 2008 is when I started coaching house league, high school volunteer hours stuff.
Yeah.
And I started coaching at Laurier 2008 as an assistant and then just kind of took off from there.
Awesome. Would you say Mourinho's, I guess, like your GOAT coach, greatest of all time coach?
No, he was my inspiration. And as a Portuguese person, he's a huge source of pride for our country and especially in his profession because there's Portuguese managers all over the world now because of him. But things that Pep Guardiola has done, I think has surpassed everybody now.
Fair enough. So Pep's your GOAT?
Absolutely.
How old were you when you started coaching?
Officially 22, turning 23. So I was coaching university players that were like a year younger than me.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, that's pretty young.
How do the players take that in, like that their coaches?
Yeah, sometimes they're like, this guy doesn't know anything, stuff like that, right?
It was weird at first because I played against some of these guys and it used to be called KDSL, it was like a Kitchener District Soccer League. And a lot of these kids played there in the summers to stay fit. And I was playing there with a team of like old Portuguese construction guys. And we used to just kick the shit out of them if we couldn't beat them, technically.
Yeah.
So then when I saw these kids in preseason in August, they're all kind of like, whoa, we just played against this guy last week and now he's
coaching
announced as the assistant coach. But it was a good dynamic because I think it was the start and the base of how I've coached my whole life. Sports is about relationships. Mm-hmm. And because I got close with these guys, the head coach was a genius, but he was a bit of a hard ass. So I was the guy that kind of put my arm around him and was like, hey, I know he said this, but he means this. And then the players got closer to me. And then eventually, we won OUA Provincials my first year as an assistant. Beat the mighty York University at York that Saka was coaching. I know he's going to hate that after but they scored they made a bad back pass and an extra time and our striker ran onto it and scored.
Yeah, wow.
Upset of all upsets, but it was a great experience, a great first year, but the dynamic was odd at the beginning.
So would you give kudos to, I guess, that Laurier head coach to kind of give your breakthrough
1000%. So his assistant had just left that spring. I had emailed Laurier, Waterloo, and Guelph, he being from Cambridge. None of the coaches answered me back except him.
Wow.
So when he replied, you know, I didn't make a penny, but it was such a great experience. Like,
Oh, for sure.
a 2-year-old now, you know, would go and volunteer their time at a university, you know.
Well, anywhere. No one's volunteering anywhere.
Nowhere. Not to get like, and it was real time experience. Like this guy threw me in the deep end. I remember the first time he asked me to run an activity. He was like, "How did you think it went?" And I'm like, so green. I'm like, "Yeah, I thought it was great."
It's trash.
He's like, "It was fucking terrible."
Oh, God.
He goes, "You missed this. You didn't point out that. You didn't stop it when the guy did this." And I'm just like flooding with like information overload. And I go, wow, like he's right. I did miss that.
Yeah.
So from then on, I learned how to not answer that way ever again. So anytime he asked me, how did anything go on?
You know that means that
It's okay. I could have done this better, but he needed to know that you knew it wasn't good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you learn. Like that's
For
where
sure.
learning happens.
For sure.
If you finish every session, you're like, yeah, I knocked that out of the park. Real people are going to find you out. Like Carm was another one for that. Like when I got to Vaughan, he'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing here with this?" Like whatever activity it was. Like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this, building out of the back." He's like, "That's terrible. You didn't once address this. You didn't once address that. The field size is too big. You had too many guys. You not enough neutral. Whatever the case was, he just picked you apart, and it just it makes you sit back and reflect, and it makes you get better. Like pressure honestly does make you get better.
So how long were you at the Laurier?
3.5 years.
3.5 years, and majority of the time it was like still like you're learning your, I guess, firsthand as a young coach, pretty much, right? So
Yeah, and that's where I learned the value of tactics. He wanted to play 1-3-5-2. We sat back, we countered against everybody. I hated that style of play. Like I got into coaching because, you know, Mourinho's Porto teams went at teams. Like they went to Man United and got a result. Like they went to Monaco and smacked them in the finals. Like they went at teams, and that's how I like to coach. But it was completely different. But then I learned the value of, you know, there was kids, God bless them, they had no business playing university soccer, but those were the type of athletes we had at that school at the time, and we made it work. Like, we made guys feel like they were giants. So we could go to a York who had like 19 OUA All-Stars and get a result just because these kids believed they were better than what they were. And the psychological part of the game, the tactical part of the game, I learned like firsthand at a really young age what that was like at this level.
And like you said, it's true. Like you got to work with what you have, right? I mean, obviously you would love to play an attacking football type of, you know, formation, you know, style of play, but you got to see what you have first of all and work with that. And that's something definitely you learn throughout your career, obviously. But going back to, like you said, when you were such a young age coaching these young kids, there's also such a benefit for these older coaches, right? To have you in their kind of roster, because you're kind of can connect with the players a lot more than an older coach, right? Because you're at that same age, right? So you kind of get best of both worlds with your age, and I think that definitely probably helped you and also the coach and the team. Yeah, I'd say, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So after Laurier, you went to Vaughan was the next step?
No, not quite. So after Laurier, I was doing like youth soccer and Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, and then I did my national B license in the U.S. in 2012, and then in 2013, I got a job offer to coach at a youth club in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So that was, I was working full-time at Royal Bank at the time, and I remember I was in a vault, like counting money. You're not supposed to have like your phone on you, obviously, for obvious reasons. But I get this message on BBM. I'm dating myself now big time. But a BBM message, and my branch manager, who's an absolute legend, like he's my mortgage agent now. He works with my sister, who's a real estate agent. He's a beauty. He goes, he's like, "What are you doing, man? Put your phone away." I was like, "Hey, man, I just got a job offer to coach soccer."
Later, taking this with me.
And he legitimately just looks at me, he goes, "You got to go. You got to leave." And I was like, "What?" Like, not the thing I would expect my boss to say. And he goes, "You got to go." He goes, "Royal Bank will always be here, but this opportunity might not. Like, you go try it out. If it doesn't work, you come back to the bank. You'll get your job back. And if it does work out, then, you know, you're on your way with your career." And it was a crazy thing to say, but it was 100% accurate. And I just saw him actually last week. I went to Vegas and I needed to get U.S. money. He was at the branch that I had worked at. And he's like, "So I guess it worked out for you." Yeah, man, 10 years later, working in a professional environment. Who would have thought that back then? Yeah, after Rock Hill, I did my A license while I was down there, and that's when I met Serge De Luca, who was at Vaughan Soccer Club. And
Yes.
3 months went by, and he sent me a Facebook message. That was another interesting way of communicating back then. But send me a Facebook Messenger. Hey, you ready to come home? And I was like, I always wanted to work in GTA, right? Like I knew the talent of the players that were up here, and no disrespect to Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, but I grew up playing double sports. There's a lot of dual sport athletes there. We had talented teams and players, but nothing of the sort of that I saw at Vaughan. OPDL had just started. The L1 boys needed a coach, and then he offered me that job, and that's when I started at Vaughan in 2014.
And that's what he said to you. You ready to come home? That's his just.
Legitimately is.
You know what?
I got receipts. I can pull it.
That's
freaking. Are you ready to come home? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, what do you got for me? And then he mentioned this group. Mind you, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. They had just lost 4 kids to TFC.
Oh,
so there's 14 players on the roster.
Oh, shit.
You have to have a minimum of 14 or you get fined. So every game or two, I was like calling players up, either from the B team or the team a year younger, to make sure that we had 14 players. But the best part of that was like that group was incredible. It was one of the better groups that we've had at the club, period. And again, another baptism by fire, because I'd never worked with that age group before. I never worked with U13s. So I had to relearn how to coach that age, because I'd always been with like university age kids or U17.
They have different mindsets.
Very different.
Very different. Yeah.
Very different.
So would you say coming back home, gave you that opportunity to like really bring your talent to Canada and kind of like work on that growth in the Canadian sport in general? Or, like, did you really just think like it was more like was an improvement as a position working from where you were in the US and like in Vaughan, or was it really more like just thinking like, hey, I want to go back home and like work on developing the sport there? Or
yeah, so the head coach at Laurier, Mario Haliper is his name. I remember calling him when I was in North Carolina when Serge sent me that message, and I called Carm, and Mario kind of hit me with something that always stuck with me, and he's like, do you want to be like one of these coaches that bounces around from club to club every year because they're offering you more money? Yeah. Or are you going to go somewhere and plant roots like he did in Kitchener, like Carm did in Vaughan? Plant roots and do something special for the game, like really do something special. And when I sat back and thought of it, I'm like, you know what? I could bounce around for years and get like better paying jobs, but am I ever going to make a connection with the players I'm working with? Am I ever going to make a connection with the people I'm working with? Like, no. And then coming to Vaughan, like, who would have thought that it would have been 9 years of what it was? But it was 9 years of exactly that. Like, I got to put roots in. I've got cultivated amazing relationships with players that have turned out to represent our national team and won national championships on the men's and women's side now. And then the staff was incredible. All the people I worked for were top notch. So it was like honestly, it was like a hidden blessing. I came up thinking, oh yeah, I got to work in GTA with good players. Yeah. That's how I thought. Yeah. And then when I got here, it was like, wow, Carm's amazing to work for. Serge is amazing. Then I met Patrice, and obviously people that know how that story went. And the players were just incredible, from the 01 group all the way to the 97s, back up to the 06s, which was the last group I worked with. Like, just worked with so much talent up here. It's crazy.
When they I guess sent you that message and told you to, like, come to Vaughan, was that when things kind of changed for Vaughan Soccer Club in general, or was it more like you were part of the growth and development? Because we played for Vaughan, he played for Woodbridge, and from then till now, what it was then, like, it was not the same difference. It's a lot that before it was a lot more, just competitive, but recreational competitive. It was nothing. There was like one showcase a year, but it was really like a specific showcase to showcase. It wasn't the way it is today with any level in the soccer industry, especially because you can see now, groups football, like everything at every age, there's intentions and there's a reason behind it and there's a process. Before, house league, you're playing rep. If you're anything more than that, it was difficult to find. So would you say like it started like when you joined, or was it kind of like were you part of that process?
I'd say I came in probably at a time where it was like a perfect storm. So Carm had already put like so much into Vaughan soccer. He was taking teams on tours to the US back when that wasn't really a thing, like playing against university teams, stuff like that. And then having Patrice work alongside him, I think even accelerated that, because Patrice is a hustler. Like, if you guys ever get a chance to have a conversation with him, like, you can feel his energy and passion off the rip. Like, he's man, he's so passionate. And, you know, at the time, I think he only had one young child at the time. So he still had the energy to go and do all this stuff. Carm was already, I think, established with 3 children. So it was a lot of work. And then I came in at the time where all of a sudden we're going to 2 showcases. All of a sudden we're playing 3 or 4 universities instead of 1 or 2. And it was just like, yeah, it was just a perfect storm of Pat kind of accelerating what Carm had already done. And then him having somebody equally as crazy with not a lot to do that was willing to take these trips last minute notice and being asked to get a rental van and drive his van full of players down. But that's where it was. It was like they were at a good place. And then we had like a bunch of good coaches. But I think the difference between like where we took it was just the fact that we had equal-minded people that were willing to put in a bit extra work to make those showcases happen, those games happen, and all that stuff.
Nice. Speaking about Patrice and Carm, obviously, those are household names here in Vaughan, right? And then in the soccer, you know, realm. What did you learn from them? What was like the one key thing that you could say you learned from Patrice and Carm that really, you know, pushes you and you use today still, type of stuff?
So I'll try to pick one each, otherwise we'll be.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely a lot.
Yeah, they're incredible people, and they have incredible minds for the game. I would say with Carm, I would say game management. Like there were times during League One where he was like the 3rd assistant. So it's like Pat, me, Anthony Vidori, Carm. And he should be at the front, but he's kind of behind us. And there'd be times where it'd be like, yeah, we got to take this guy off. Like, and he's going, no, absolutely do not take that guy off. And it's 0-0. And he goes, if anyone's going to score a goal, it's going to be that guy. And then surely 5 minutes later, that guy scores a goal. And he's like, now you can take him off. 1-0 lead. And it's like, man, how did he know that? Like, but it's just like he's got so much experience and he has such an intuition for the game. So for Carm, 100% is like game management. Like watching him manage at York, coaching against him when I was at Laurier, coaching with him at Vaughan. Like I sat on the bench with him when they had 2016 League One championships and they beat FC London. They were a man down and they beat them 5-1.
Wow. Oh,
yeah, man, like a man down before half. Like the way he managed the game, he was so. I'm not going to use the word calm because people that know Carm and the word calm don't go together. But he perceived that he was calm because he knew what he was doing. And then for Pat, I think he's definitely about culture. Like he's above all of his other talents. Like he was able to grow something that was already so strong in his own vision, and it was like, you have to buy into this or you're out. Like if this isn't all there is, like for example, at U17, U18, U19, these kids are looking for scholarships and stuff, but then they're working part-time. Then they're missing practices because they're working, because they're after money. Yeah. And I would hear him go, listen, you can make your, whatever the minimum wage was at the time, you know, working part-time, or you can get a $200,000 scholarship. You can invest in soccer, commit yourself to this, not make any money, but have $200,000 US worth of your scholarship paid. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the culture. Like he got rid of guys that were not serious, I guess, at that age, and had buy-in from not only our guys, like the guys from Vaughan that were kind of coming through the system, but then we started getting kids from like outside the city, from like Ryan Raposo from Hamilton, Dane St. Clair from Ajax, like Kamal Miller from Scarborough. We started getting these kids like coming into the club from outside the city because they were buying into what he was putting together. So I think with Pat, culture, and then Carm, I would say is game management.
So just for the viewers who obviously aren't familiar with the Vaughan system and the Canadian football, can you just give us like a brief description of like who Carm and Patrice are, just so viewers who aren't familiar a little bit know who they actually are and how they, I guess, who they are today, right?
Yeah, so I'll start. Carm Asako was just a youth sport legend. Like he multiple-time OUA champion at York University, men and women. Also multiple-time youth sport national champion on the men's side. I think the women have gone to nationals twice under his watch. And then he was the League One men's coach at Vaughan for since its inception until he went to York 9 in 2019. And then that's when Patrice kind of took over. So Patrice Geyser, head coach of Halifax Wanderers in the CPL right now, multiple-time League One regular season champion at Vaughan, and multiple-time League One like championship, I guess. And he was part of the club the 2 years we made Canadian championships. So he was involved the first time we played against Halifax, And then we were part of the team that played CF Montreal last year.
Nice.
We won and then went to Halifax, and then Carm took over from there from when they played CF Montreal. But we were part of that kind of winning culture at the club.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely big role models for players coaches like yourself and coaches coming up today, right? Do you see a lot of coaches, I guess, following that same kind of like path now, or like is it hard to find those kind of coaches out there right now?
Yeah, I would probably agree with your second statement. It's harder to find people that are almost going back to what I said before, like who's going to come, like just for an example, I didn't make any money in my first 2 months, I think, working with Pat. Like I was coaching OPDL and then finishing my OPDL sessions and running over to Sonoma because Pat's got 70 guys on the field and he's by himself.
Wow.
And like I'd show up there and he'd give me a half with the 35 guys and he'd take the other half with the other 35 guys, and we're trying to run a session with like multiple age groups, multiple teams. And you know, this is outdoor in February, by the way, like the freezing cold, and I didn't get a check. Like, who's gonna do that now? Like,
Yeah, that's
you know, and he, like, I know how he is now, but back then I was just happy to be there. He's putting me through the ringer to kind of see if I'm gonna be able to last. And you know, I did. And a lot of guys, men and women in the game now, it's like, yeah, I want to be a coach. How much do I start at? And it's like, pardon? Yeah, how much do you start at? Like, have you coached a game before? Like, have you coached a training session with, you know, provincial level players, or, you know, players that have been at TFC or NDC, which is like the TFC version for girls in Ontario? Like, have you been at that level where you've developed these players or worked with them before to be demanding salary?
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it is. But I think, and I'm not alone, I don't think in saying this, that even in like professional realms, like corporate realms, that stuff's happening too. Kids coming out of university and they're like, yeah, my expectations are $80K salary. That's like, I worked at the bank, I was making $40K, but I was in charge of $400,000 at the branch. It's crazy like
that shift.
I was happy with my $40K because I knew if I did a good job, I'd make $60K or $80K eventually.
Yeah.
But now I don't know, it's a culture shift, but with specific to soccer, I find it very difficult to have young coaches that are motivated to come and work like for free and do even for free, even if it's like a little bit of money, just come out and earn your keep a bit. And then if you can hang, like you'll get your pay.
It'll come. Exactly. That goes for everything.
Yeah,
I agree.
When my brother used to play, because he's a 2000, he's played for Vaughan. So my dad used to coach them. They were called the Vaughan Battle Cuts. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Yeah, that was my dad's team back in the day, and then got taken over.
Lombardo take care of them after?
I can't remember who took over after he left, but it was one of them. Maybe Serge. Oh yeah, someone. But when they went to training, you could see there were these young trainers, I guess, coaches that would coach, I guess, a little bit younger ages, but they didn't like. I could tell that you have like a lot of passion for this game. Those guys were just there to be there. And I'm guessing they didn't make it out after because I haven't seen them since, but you could see the difference of people who really care to be there and who don't. Like, and I could see what you're saying. The new generations they don't have that passion for doing this anymore.
I agree. And I think if money's your motivating factor, but you're creative and you have something that, like, you have a talent or you have a passion for something, you're never going to be successful. Like, in my opinion, I think if your passion's the motive and that's what motivates you and that's what gets you up every day, the money will follow you and will come after. And, you know, at least that was true in my situation. And having told you a little bit about my history, like, I had to go through the mud to get to where I was. Like, it's hard to convince people to do that now.
It's probably better that you did because you learn way more when you go through the mud like that.
That's like, I remember doing one of my first licenses. They're like, whatever you learn in this course is not what's going to take you where you're going to go.
Yeah.
It's your time on the grass,
For sure.
time between the white lines. And at the time, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I probably coached like 100 games in 2021, like between League One, OPDL, U17, OYS, like all that stuff, like League One reserves. Like there was probably 100 games I coached that summer. And that's exactly where it is. Like, and I never went there and said, hey, I coached X amount of games, I need this much money. Like, no, I got a salary. If I worked above my salary, I didn't ask questions. I just did my job and took it where it went.
So would you say that the stuff you learned on the pitch and by Carm, Patrice, with other coaches that you were like underneath or learned from, even the Laurier coach, would you say you learned more from them than maybe the stuff you read in a class or in books
or on
programs?
Research.
or researching? You think obviously I think you probably learn more from them than you would.
Yeah, I would say there's nothing.
Yeah.
Books, internet, courses, they're all great. Like there is a place for all of that stuff. And I admit I am a nerd. I love going, like when Pep was doing his open sessions at Bayern, like I used to watch him on YouTube all the time.
Nice. Yeah, I love watching those.
Yeah, it was amazing. But like
Yeah.
I can't do what Pep does because I don't coach Bayern Munich.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So like watching real world, watching Mario at Laurier, watching Carm with York and with League One, watching Pat with League One or U21s or U17s, whatever team he was coaching at the time. Like, yeah, that's where you learn. And listen, that's where you learn what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Like you take things, oh, I like this activity Carm's doing, but I wouldn't do it this way. And I'll go and use it on my 2001s, for example, and do the same activity, but add my own spin on it. And as a coach, you should want to aspire to do that. You should want to make things your own because I can't do what Pep does, but he also can't do what I do. And that's why we're unique. Like,
Yeah.
That's why Pat's unique. That's why Carm's unique. If everyone just copied each other, nobody would get anywhere.
Yeah, it's true. 100%. I'm sure a lot of players would be like, I've done this before. Like there's nothing specific to you, to Patrice, to whoever it is, but like it's good. It's different from everyone. James, you got a couple of questions for before we step into the next step, because obviously there's
a lot in
there's a lot to your career and your path. So before we move on to the next path in your life, I know there's a couple of questions, James.
Oh, I definitely think, like, honestly, we answered a lot of them even just through conversation here. But I think maybe one cheeky fun one we can do before we head on, I guess, to the next path in your career. Obviously, you coached Vaughan for quite some time. A lot of talent kind of came through those ranks. If you had to, give us your all-time Vaughan five-a-side team.
Oh,
Players that you've coached, don't take offense if you don't make the team.
yeah.
Anybody watching? But who would you field?
So five-a-side, do I need a keeper?
If you want.
Yeah, put a
Throw it
keeper.
at you.
I'll throw in a keeper.
Yeah.
So Dane St. Clair is the most disrespectful person on earth. If you watch this kid in a rondo, like he megs the outfield players, he's talking smack while he's doing it. Like Dane St. Clair has to be my keeper because he's a good shot stopper, obviously, and his feet are immaculate. Like his left foot is sweet. So I'll start with Dane in goal. Man, I'll go with Kamal because he's got some grit. So I'll go 2-1-2. So Kamal and Alistair Johnson as the two center backs, obviously.
Yeah.
Who's my midfielder, man? There's a lot of good.
He's got to control that. He's by himself.
Yeah.
Jeez, who's that midfielder? You know what? I'll give some love to someone that I worked with very, very closely for a long time, and I'll put Alistair's brother Malcolm Johnston on there.
Yeah.
And he'll be like a 6, 8, 10. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. Yeah. So I'll put Malcolm in the middle. No pun intended. And,
That's good. Wow.
my front two have to be Massimo Farron because he's working with us right now at Halifax, and Massey's nasty with his feet, and he's a good goal scorer. Oh,
Shoot.
let's go Ryan Raposo because he's like a winger / attacking mid. I'll put Ryan Raposo as the other attacker next to Massimo Farron.
A lot of talent.
Solid
A
ride.
lot of talent. I know that was tough.
There's a lot of names in my head right now that I'm like, he could have been in there too.
You're gonna go home tonight, like, ah, shit.
I know.
or get some trips in
I
it.
think like FIFA, like with the chemistry. Kamal and Malcolm and Alistair and Kamal, Alistair, and Dane play together at the national team. Malcolm is brothers with Alistair. Massimo is the same age as Alistair.
There you go.
Ryan Raposo's a year different. He's 99.
The perfect link.
Yeah.
The perfect storm. That's a solid five-a-side team. In the comments, let us know who you'd put in that five-a-side team if it's not those guys there. Awesome. All right, so I guess, kind of moving on. I know we mentioned Patrice a lot, kind of when we were talking about Vaughan. Obviously now you've moved on with Patrice to Halifax. What do you think, I guess, has been that biggest shift going from, coaching League One and coaching with Vaughan to now coaching in the CPL and kind of that, professional level in Canada? What would you say is like the biggest shift that you found so far?
I think at least the toughest thing for me was getting used to the travel. Like we're the furthest east team in the country, and our trek from Halifax to Victoria, which is where Pacific play, someone told me was like either the longest or the second longest by kilometers distance in professional soccer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I haven't verified that, but I was told that, and it's no joke. Like and there's no direct flight, so we got to fly into Calgary, wait, get a connector, go to Victoria. If you guys ever need tips on the Calgary airport with because we stopped there so many times on
Oh my gosh.
on connectors. But yeah, man, the travel was tough. And then like Vaughan, like we're driving everywhere.
Yeah.
We have our sessions, we have our times set. You know, in Halifax, we're training in the morning now, so now it's like, you know, getting these guys proper rest, making sure they're coming in fresh, getting their sessions in, getting their video work in, which is something that we didn't get to do at Vaughan either. Like we're way more hands-on now at the professional level, which I enjoyed. I did a lot of coursework that didn't really help translate it at the youth level because I didn't get the time like to do that stuff with them. I could do one classroom session maybe a month where you're showing video and stuff. But now this is their job, this is their profession.
Yeah.
Some of the guys come up to you and go, Coach, can you show me something that this weekend this happened and I want to look at that? And like, that's my favorite part. So that's probably the biggest shift was, yeah, focusing on getting proper rest in the travel and making sure that I'm sharp and that these guys are sharp. And then the next part was like the individual development and how do I help kind of contribute in a different way to the field stuff and to the team stuff without actually like Pat's running the session. I was used to running sessions. So now that he's running the session, I got to find my own like way around. Like, how do I make myself useful? And yeah, that's probably it. Like trying to figure out where you stand and what you're supposed to be doing and how you can help benefit the players and the team.
For sure.
I have a question for you said in-class sessions. So I'm guessing you guys do that when like trying to figure out an upcoming team. Do you use it for that? Yeah.
Yep.
So what's like the importance for an in-class session? Is that more important than like actually training to prepare for the team, or is that in-class session just like that important for them to like understand how that team plays, what they do, just their tactics and all?
I think like for me personally, nothing will ever replace field sessions. Like that's where like my bread and butter was for years. Like I loved being on the field. I loved breaking down the opposition and then translating that to the pitch. Where it can kind of get lost is when you go and do the classroom video sessions, you pick out little things that maybe you might miss when you're trying to translate or transmit that information to them on the field. Unless you're super like diligent with note taking. But the video sessions, like there was a time, for example, where we had such a congested fixture list. I forget where we were, but we had a game and then we had to go to Pacific and then we had another home game like right after the Pacific game. So we were traveling to Victoria, which as I mentioned is the longest stretch for us. We were going to play a 5-4-1 that game /5-2-3. And this is going to gut me for saying this because I'm a big Tikisha and I hate Sporting. I was showing our backline videos of Sporting and the year that they won the Portuguese league. Yeah. Excuse me, because we had never done that before. We only go to a back five if we're in the lead and it's like late in the game.
Yeah.
We were going to start the game that way because we had like one of our star center backs was suspended from cards. We had some injuries that we wanted to rest guys because I think we were playing Calgary. We were playing Calgary when we got back to home.
Yeah.
It was like a big first place match. So we went to Pacific with like not a weekend squad, but like some of the guys that hadn't played a lot were getting an opportunity to play. Excuse me. And it was incredible, like how much that airport video session in Calgary worked. Like we were winning at half.
Oh, and then
nice. A PK late to tie the game. But we were up at half at one point in the game, and we were really proud of the effort that they put in. And he's actually like a Woodbridge legend, I would say. Armand Wilson scored his first professional goal that game off a free kick. So, yeah, we were really happy with how that went just from the video.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool. Would you say there's times where maybe you kind of bring up some ideas? Like, for example, this one, was it kind of your idea? Or was it something Patrice brought to the training or to the visual session? Is there something like that? Sometimes you kind of like that, Patrice, I got this. Like, let me show this to the guys kind of thing.
I think the reason why we worked so well for so long is neither of us are like scared to throw out ideas out there. So whether it was mine or his, it was irrelevant. Like we're both on board with it usually. Even through gritted teeth sometimes, like he might say like, because for example, I do set pieces. He might be like, oh, I don't really like that corner. But it's like, but I want to try this corner. If guys do it and they're successful, great. If they don't, whatever. We go back to the drawing board. And same thing with him. Like he might suggest something like the 5-4-1, and I'm going, oh no, man, it's getting Laurier flashbacks. Like, we're gonna defend and then counter. Like, but you do it through gritted teeth because you think this is going to give us the best chance to win, or you have faith or you have trust in the person that's making the suggestion. And whether it was his or mine, we did it and it worked. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't, we're not so, I guess, egotistical that it matters whose idea it was. It's whatever it is, it's going to help the team win, and we're there for it.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's to benefit the club, right? And and if it works, if it doesn't, at least even for example, if Patrice, you said something and Patrice didn't agree with it, but you went on with it, just for you to know that Patrice has your back, even though he might not agree with it, but he has your back. That's also kind of gives you guys a bond, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no team will go anywhere without their coaches. If their coaches don't agree with each other, they can't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's great that you guys are on board with everything. So
That connection.
definitely take you guys to that next level.
You guys sometimes look at each other like, oh, like kind of like looking at each other like, yes, like no words said, but like you guys think in game or like make this transition and put this player in. You guys just like kind of like.
There's moments where something will happen and I'll look back and I'm like, yeah, you're right. He's ready to come off, or
Told you. It's the years that you guys have been working together, right?
Sure.
And like, do you think that's kind of something, I guess, important? Also, I wouldn't know exactly how it works, but Patrice was brought and then he brought you with him, or was it something like that he kind of made the decision, or was the team kind of made a decision to let him make his own decision, or was it? How did that really happen?
From what I understand, is he was kind of given like carte blanche and said like, you bring your people, you do what you want to do, and then he had suggested me. And then the club, when they reached out to me separately, they were like, hey, listen, Pat's put your name forward for this role. Is it something you're interested in, et cetera? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, you know, I've worked hard for this opportunity for a long time, so I was excited for the opportunity. So kudos to the club for giving him that kind of free reign, because, you know, it happens in most places where, you know, Antonio Conte gets hired at Chelsea, he brings his own guys.
Brings his own people.
But it also happens in some places where they're like, they have people already in the back room that are really good. So I look at a guy like Jose Mourinho, like he's taken a lot of guys with him, but then when Andre Villas-Boas took his job and when João Sacramento left, like he goes and just finds new talent, or takes Italians when he went to Rome, and you know, English coaches when he was in England. It's you know, it's up to the person who they want to bring in. But I think one of the first assignments I had to do when I did my UEFA A course was, you're a head coach, you get hired tomorrow, you need to give us a dossier of who you're hiring as your first assistant, second assistant, goalkeeper coach, fitness coach. Then they give you like a list of traits that they think you should be looking for. And one of the things that stuck out to me is like trust, obviously. And it goes back to one of you guys that already mentioned it. Like, Pat trusts me that when he says something, even if I don't agree with it, I'm going to tell the team this is what we're doing and why. And vice versa. Like, if I'm saying something and he doesn't agree with it, but he thinks it's going to benefit a player or the defenders or whoever's taking the free kicks, like, he'll back me up. So I think trust was a huge thing for any, like, you guys in this room. Like, you guys wouldn't do this if you didn't have faith and trust in the guys that you work with. So I think that was the biggest thing that stuck out for me. Like, man, I'd known him since 2016 when I was working with him. And kudos to him for having, you know, the cojones, for lack of a better term, to go and, you know, die on that stake. No, I'm bringing this guy with me. And then kudos to the club for saying, okay, no problem. We'll give you the conditions to bring this guy in and then see where it goes. But turned out okay.
I guess your relationship with him definitely grew from that point on. Like, you just knew, like, hey, like, obviously appreciating the opportunity, and again, like, just having you there, obviously it's furthermore your career and the next path and the next path. So even just speaking on that, you're always learning in this sport. Well, a lot of people are learning on their day-to-day jobs, but in this sport specifically, I think you're always kind of learning. From what do you think is like was the biggest piece that you've learned so far as this role in this position as in the CPL, as a coach, as a manager?
I think the biggest thing for me was probably that you're working against like-minded people. So at League One, no disrespect to the other coaches at all that played it, that coached in League One, but I always went to the game like confident that our teams were going to win, men or women. And like, our men won in 2022 and our women won for the first time in 2022. And I was confident that I knew enough about the way they coached, the way their teams played, that no matter what, at the end of the day, my principles were going to surpass them and we were going to win. When you get to CPL, it's like everyone's at this level for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, like Calvary's coach has been there 5 years and he's done an excellent job with that team. Bobby at Forge has been there for 5 years and his record speaks for itself. Like, this guy's won 4 championships and hasn't won Coach of the Year once. Like, it's crazy.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
It's nuts.
Wow.
Every time we go against them, it's like a chess match, man. I literally, like, I take notes like during the matches.
Yeah.
In League One, I felt like I had the other teams figured out at half.
Yeah. They're taking notes of you.
And we're making adjustments, and I'm like, boom, we're gonna kill them second half.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, what the hell is going on with Mandrakar James? Like, why is he making overlapping runs and he's a center back? You know, and you're watching this
Stuff you didn't expect.
Game, something you didn't expect, something you might not have planned for, and then you're having to make adjustments for it on the fly, like in the moment. So I think that, for me, was the biggest difference, was that, you know, we have coaches that are in this league that are very, very good, that have done an excellent job with their teams, that are, you know, that we're all, like, it's bottleneck now. Like, everybody's got the same talent. Everybody's got maybe not as much experience, but the knowledge is there. And then philosophically, it's up to you. What's more important, experience or knowledge? And I learned recently that I think knowledge is as important as experience. So that was one of the biggest challenges for us this year, was, definitely, like, can't underestimate anybody.
No, for sure. What would you? This is a pretty funny one. Like, what would you say, like, the preparation against coming up against teams like Chris mentioned? Like, there's obviously the field prep and there's like the video prep. You say you're prepared for a team, you're coming up against it, but then you're like, this isn't what we prepared for. How often does that happen?
I would say not often, because, like, Patrice is so diligent. Our video analyst, Jed Davies, he's like the second assistant coach. He's very diligent, and that guy's like eye for video is incredible. Like, he like puts these video packages together. Some of the stuff is like really, really detailed. Like, it's really hard for you to mess things up. The only thing that we really get surprised on game day is maybe player selection, like personnel, the odd time, because all these guys are like just geniuses fighting against each other.
Exactly. So they're just trying to do the
formation.
last second. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's never like those last switches
like that.
So, like, for example, like on the formation sheet it says a 5-4-1, but you know it's not. It's going to be a 4-2-3-1 because you know.
Like,
but they just try to play
back end, center mid.
But
they
have him striker,
so he's going to play center mid. You know what I mean? Like, you just know. But it's you play every team 4 times, so it's eventually you know, you're going to know the other teams like the back of your hand. That's why the end of the season for me was so much fun, because it's like, we know you, you know us. Now it's like, who's going to be better on the day? There were no real surprises at the end of the season.
You prepared like the last 2-3 games for it. So the last game was like, okay, you boys know what to do. Like, you go out and do it. Like, it's on you guys. That's great. That's great. I have a question then. Following up with that, obviously your whole point is trying to, you know, play a chess game, try to beat them. Has it been ever like an issue where, you know, your tactics got figured out from another team and you had to switch on the fly, kind of?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Just because I think at that level, we have enough like good players that would solve that problem for us. Like, I'll use Massimo Ferrin as an example. He's a left winger that likes to cut in. He was scoring goals the same way at the end of the season that he was at the beginning of the season. So even if they doubled him or had some sort of strategy for having like a center mid go help the fullback defend, he still would get off his shots and get his opportunities because of the quality that he and the rest of our team had to give him those chances. So I don't remember a time where we were like, oh shit, we're up against it now. They figured us out. Like, even if they knew what we were doing, like, the individual talent of the players is what's going to get you out of that like situation.
That's where you trust your players' experience as well, right? For them to able to analyze the game and, okay, this isn't working clearly. Let me switch my game up and start doing this, right? Yeah.
It's very well said. I agree.
What were like your, I guess, honest opinions of like the CPL before? Because it's what, the 6th year now? This will be the 6th year, and you joined last year, right?
Yep.
So the year was 4 years at the time, already completed. You joined in the 5th year. What were your honest opinions of the league? I guess from the year it inaugurated to like the 4th year, the 5th year you joined. What were your expectations as well? Like, what did you think really of the league before joining?
I get asked this question a lot. I think if you guys ever watch Last Chance U on Netflix, like I thought of it like it's First Chance U or Last Chance U. First Chance U being like all these kids coming out of Vaughan that have never had pro experience before, like Massimo Farron and Riley Ferrazzo, that get an opportunity to play pro ball full time, getting a salary, living like a pro, like breathing, sleeping, eating like a pro. Then it's Last Chance U because it's like some guys in their late 20s, early 30s, they want to come home. They still want to play the sport, but maybe they've had like a journeyman career in USL or they've played overseas and they want to come back and like play in front of their home friends and family because that's a unique opportunity.
Of course.
So the talent level at the start of, because I had the unique experience of like watching Serge and Carm's growth at York 9. I used to go watch quite a few of their games. And, you know, it wasn't, I don't think it was as much talent individually as it is now. And I think because all the coaches were relatively fresh at that time as well, they hadn't had the experience in the league. Yeah. I think looking back at year 5, and I'm saying this personally and what I've heard from other people in the league, like other coaches that have been in the league for a while, they said year 5 was probably the most fun because it was so much more competitive, because the coaching standards better, the player standards are better. It's not to say there weren't good players when the league started, but I think it was just not as dense. Like it was a bit more sporadic. It
was still a learning curve for everyone.
Yeah. And each team had 1 or 2 like studs, where I think now after year 5, I'm looking at each team starting 11. Their strongest 11 are solid. You could chop and change maybe your 2 or 3 guys, but for the most part, like, you know, that guy I would take on my team. Whereas I don't know if you could have said that in 2019.
There's a lot like more experimental back then, whereas to now, like the 5th year, like most of our teams kind of have their set players, whereas before, like you kind of brought players in, tried it out, and there's a lot of rotation within players as well. So speaking on that too, like you guys brought in again Farron and Riley to this team. How big were they, I guess, for this team today? And then how was it kind of bringing those guys in and kind of keeping that same like relationship you guys had when you guys were playing in League One?
The winning culture.
And that winning culture as well. And even like them to kind of like speak onto you guys with the players. Like, yeah, like I've been with these yourself and Patrice from League One, now joining with these new set of players, and how did they adapt with that kind of style as well?
Yeah, I think Riley and Massimo fit in really well at the beginning because Mass is more introverted, but he's a very talented player. And I think a lot of guys like gravitated to him because of that. And then Riley, like, man, we could be here all night talking about Riley's antics, but Riley's like a very like the class clown kind of guy. Like his talent is immense. What he does on the field is unquestioned. But what he does in the locker room is like that's not that little wrinkle you need in your like fabric to make the team work, to make the culture work. And Riley's funny, he gets along with everybody. And I think both of those players were huge in terms of like buffers because, you know, player Y from England might have never worked with a guy like Patrice before. He's a very unique person, and I'm pretty unique. Our goalkeeper coach is unique. Our video guy's unique. So you're working with different people, and, you know, they're going, why are they doing this? And then Riley and Massimo are there to say, oh, no, you would do this at Vaughan. Like, we would do this crazy transition drill for 70 minutes of the 90-minute session, and you'd be throwing up, but it works.
It works. Trust us.
Yeah.
Trust us. Yeah.
Trust them that they're going to do what it's going to require for you to become a better player and for us to become a better team.
You know what that reminds me of too, actually? Like, just think about it. When you were obviously coaching those kids that are almost your age, it kind of has that kind of same correlation where they're going to trust someone in that age or in their team that, you know, that, oh, I know what he thinks, trust him, you know, and they can kind of get more, while you're the connection between the player and the coach, those players, like that connection with yourselves and like the new players at Halifax.
That is like one of the biggest statements so far in this pod is one thing that I took away as a coach. For me, your biggest endorser or co-signer is someone that's played for you.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to say, like, not everybody's experience is the same, but they'll be the ones that'll be like, oh no, this guy knows his shit. Like, he's crazy, but
you kind of need that though.
Yeah, you do.
You do, because it's hard to kind of just go out of the blue and you're training a 14, 15, 20 new guys and you're just some nobody.
Yep.
Where now you kind of have some players you played with. Now you have players you've coached and trained before, which is key, I feel like. And it's important as well.
For sure.
And Patrice too, like even bringing you along was definitely a huge for him, because if you were to bring brand new team, he's kind of like
brand new staff.
left
Yeah.
in the not dirt or dust a little bit, but like he's kind of on his own, right? So
Yeah,
that's
he
definitely
probably had to do a lot more work than he did, even though he does a lot of work, but he had to do that extra layer. You know, our video analyst, for example, took a bit to like figure him out. Like, oh, why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? How long have you guys done this for? So that, you know, not having me there, he would have to directly solve that problem.
So I was like, oh, you got it now. You took care of it.
Talk to the other coaches, be like, hey, you know, goalkeeper coach, I know he said you have 20 minutes, but you might have 15. So if you see him screaming at you to send the keepers, like, don't be shocked or don't be offended, but it might happen. So yeah, that's a great comment.
Nice, awesome. Going into year 6 and now your second year, what are you looking forward to, and like in the difference from last year to this year in terms of, I guess, just the league in general and Halifax as well for the club and just
your
the fans and yourself. Yeah,
personal goals as well. What are you looking for?
Yeah, I would say personally, I loved being creative on set pieces, but I would say I never studied them the way I do now. And then I want to say, like, after a month or two last season, we didn't really have any threats from set pieces, and we were kind of being threatened from set pieces. So myself and the goalkeeper coach, I took over the attacking, he did the defending. And it was a learning curve because now you're doing it at a professional level. You're doing it with guys that, okay, they're going to read if you try to play short on a corner, that this guy's making an overlapping run. What if I send a third guy? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to trick myself.
Where's that one? You always see those like plays on like YouTube where it's like 5 guys lined up and they're just all running over the ball with a set piece, or like the corner, like all these guys are just running through. You get all the 11 guys just running through the
Trust me, they showed these guys everything.
Let's try
this. Red Bull, I think it was New York Red Bulls did one like that where they had 6 guys run over the ball.
Exactly.
And then the guy clipped the ball to the back post. That guy headed across, and one of the 5 that ran over the ball ended up scoring.
Yeah.
So trust me, we've
tried it all.
And it's funny now because now the kids will DM me. I think City and Arsenal recently had like set piece goals that they had scored, and now these players are sending me DMs like, new set piece for 2024. So yeah, personally, it's like, how do I expand? Or funny segue because I'm doing attacking set piece Zoom call tomorrow at 11:30.
There you go.
So I have a whole presentation ready for these guys. But yeah, that like analyzing set pieces was a big difference for me. I'd never done that before, and then trying to figure out like, you know, how do you mask throw-ins? How do you mask free kicks? How do you mask? I got a cool one I'll show you guys after that we didn't end up scoring on, but I stole it from Borussia Dortmund.
That's his club.
Yeah, it was sick. Rafael Guerrero, Portuguese. He's actually the one that delivered the ball, and we had a player that was left-footed that I called Guerrero, and he's also Portuguese, so I had him deliver the ball. But we didn't score from it. But regardless, that was, for me, is just expanding that for 2024. Like, how do I get better at not only analyzing, but like giving the information to the players? How do I get them better at executing? Because unfortunately, I can't be on the field doing it for them.
Yeah.
And then as a team, it's to build on what we did last year. Like, we finished tied for second, but third place on, I think it was away goals for, was the tiebreaker between us and Forge.
Wow.
Instead of head-to-head, which I'm still salty about because we're the only team they didn't win. They didn't beat us once.
Wow.
Tied them twice and beat them twice. So, you know, getting, you know, that level up, that first 2 spots, if we can get in those first 2 spots, it'll be a huge accomplishment for us. And really, like, in the near future, it's just like getting back to preseason. Like, I just can't wait to see the guys. I can't wait for the first session. I can't wait to get the balls rolling. Like, yeah, the off season is too nuts and it's too long. Gives me opportunities to do cool stuff like this, but like, I'm itching to get back.
Yeah, I mean, anyone would be, right?
Yeah.
How would you? Okay, I just lost my train of thought here.
I have a question for your as you said, so you're the set piece coach on attacking. So how do you go into the game knowing what set piece you're going to do at what specific time? Do you have like names for them, or do you just go into the game, this one you're going to do first, second, third?
So that was like a Patrice guys are special. He used to call some of our like trick free kicks or corners like McNaughton, Maple CC. Like, we had names for them at least.
That's so funny.
Yeah, we did. But then
I was like, what's Maple CC?
Yeah, Maple CC. Call it Maple CC.
But we know,
like 2 or 3 guys get on the ball, like whatever trick they're about to do. No, for me, at that level, it's got to be their decision. So it could be a look that the other team gives. So one of the corners I analyzed which was really good, is we had done something where our corner taker passed it to the guy short, and then he ran and got the ball back, and he ended up crossing it for a goal.
Nice.
So I think the team we were playing against figured that out. So they sent 2 guys, and our corner taker passed it and it made the same run. But when he made the same run, it froze the other 2.
Because it didn't.
So we passed it back to the left-footed left back, and he mostly Timothy all showed him out. And he was like the deepest guy. He whips in a left-footed ball, and our center back's in the middle of the goal. Boom, heads it in, and it was a goal. Yeah. So it was just like we gave them the framework, and then they chose what they wanted to do. We scored a cracker against York, and same thing. It went. I had Aiden Daniels take it this time instead of Lorenzo Caligari, and Aiden's off the field. He rolls the ball to Lorenzo, and Lorenzo starts dribbling. Aiden's meant to make an overlapping run. So York sends 2 guys. Lorenzo passes it directly to Wesley Timoteo. Now Austin Ricci, another Vaughan legend, he leaves the box. He's playing for York. He leaves the box to press Wesley. Wesley rolls it across to Zach, who's like our center guy furthest back.
Yeah.
He takes a touch and cracks one from 25 yards out post.
Wow.
It was the sickest goal.
Like company.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Don't shoot. Who's a girl? Don't shoot. No, but it's true. Just before you go on, it's true. You got to give these players the framework, the tactics, but at the end of the day, they're the ones who's going to choose what to do, right? In what moment.
And I'll always say, football, there's too many variables that you cannot control.
Exactly.
It's not like
it's not going to be the exact same as training.
Basketball, you can, corners and free kicks is the only time you can do set plays. But even that, a guy in the wall leaves, now all of a sudden this trick that you had when you had overlapping run, now that's done. So these guys have to be able to adjust on the fly.
Exactly.
So I'm a firm believer that I'll give you the framework. You have to decide what happens on game day because the defending team might change their look or who comes out to press or whatever. So to say that I have that much of an impact, I'll never take that credit. I'll just say, listen, this is what you can do. This is how you guys are going to set up, and then you guys choose what you do in the moment.
Awesome. Going back to the season and Halifax and how you guys finished, was that expectations when you guys first arrived? Did you guys overachieve? What were the expectations really for Halifax in the first year when you guys got there?
I think the from the club, it was we wanted to make the playoffs. They'd been out of the playoffs since the bubble. They ended up going to the finals during the bubble. The Island games, that was, I think, 2020. So, rolling into 2022, the club had never hosted a playoff game, which I think was maybe that was an overachievement. But we wanted to make the playoffs. We knew we were,
of course,
as coaches, it might sound arrogant, but I knew we were good enough that we could get this team to fifth or fourth. Then as the season wore on and we started getting in the nitty-gritty of September, the games are winding down and our points are going up and teams are dropping points and we're looking around and we're man, we can actually make a run at this. So we actually had a not so good run of results at the beginning of September, which I think hurt our chances to finish first for sure, because then Calvary just ran away with it. But some things started working in our favor that, man, we could take second, or man, we can jump into third. And third gets to host, and second, if you won, you go straight to the finals and host. But if you lost, you got a chance to play in the semifinals and host that game. So we started gunning for that third or second spot so that we could say we would host a game. Whether it's the finals, semifinals, or quarterfinals, we'll get a chance to host a game. And I think that was, we ended up, like I said, we ended up finishing third. I think it was fair on the merit of the entire season. I think we ended up right where we belonged. And if we had a couple bounces go our way, it would have been different. Like the last game of the season, Mass got a cross and he stuck his right foot out and it hit the outside of his foot, hit the post and went out. If we scored that goal, we would have had more goals for and better goal difference than Forge, and we would have finished second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's football. That's why you love football.
That's why we love it, and that's why it breaks our heart.
Exactly.
Little things like that.
Before we, again, move on from Halifax and the CPL, I want to talk a bit about the league in general. Again, like, how do you think what's next for the league in terms of taking it now to the next step and being a little bit more, not credible, but like having more eyes on it as a fan base, viewership on television, and just even getting more fans out there? Because we do see there are some teams in the CPL that do have a larger fan base. It can also be location. It can also be a lack of maybe sports teams in the area that, brings the fans out. And what do you think is missing, or what do you think what can you expect from like fans now in terms of showing up and being there and, supporting that club and being a fan from like really day one, that kind of thing?
Like on the outside looking in, I'm just a coach, but I think about community engagement. So I think about the stuff that we do in Halifax, for example. We have like an open mic night where I think last year they called it Pints with Patrice. So they allowed
That's a good name.
Yeah, they let all the fans come to this brewery.
And they just see Patrice. Hi.
It would have been, he could have. He definitely could have taken it there, but no, he was in a professional setting.
How many can he drink? That's what I'm thinking. Pints with Patrice. Like, everyone's just watching Patrice just taking down these pints.
No, it's like very formal.
Nice.
He was getting interviewed by like a local podcast there.
Oh, cool.
But it was like open for all the fans. So
Nice.
all the, season ticket holders, both groups, both sets of ultra groups came out. Like, it was just cool. And then they're just like talking to you in an open setting. Like, I go to the grocery store and the lady at Starbucks has season tickets, and like I'll walk in with my Halifax here like after practice to get food, and she's like, "Good luck this weekend," or "Good game." For me, it's community engagement is massive. And I say that because we're in an area where we have a club in CPL that struggled to like get fans out. And I'm just saying this from a firsthand view. Before I even started at Halifax, being a Vaughan coach, bringing Vaughan teams there. Like, if it wasn't for me, like, reaching out, I don't remember a time where, someone from the club contacted me. Hey, I noticed you coach the U16 boys. We'd love to give you tickets for $10 a piece and host you this weekend. Yeah. And forget me. I'm coaching like 17, 16s. Imagine doing that for a U11 group, a U12 group, and bringing them in and having them like get to experience pro soccer. Because remember, like, some of these kids can't afford to go watch TFC.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they have a unique opportunity to bring people in this area that don't have the means to go to TFC. I'm talking Brampton, Mississauga, all that stuff. Like, bring them in, engage with the community clubs, have them send their youth teams there for a fraction of the ticket price.
Exactly.
But it's not for that game. It's for the next time, Jimmy wants, Dad, I want to go watch York United. Yeah. And he's like, okay, when are they home next? Oh, they're playing against Forge on this day. Like, yeah, let's go, kid. And now the tickets might be $25. That dad's going to want to take his kid because, the kid wants to go. I akin it to, like, I grew up in a community where OHL hockey was huge. We had Kitchener Rangers. We used to, like, me playing hockey growing up, we used to go watch Kitchener Ranger games all the time. And, like, I loved it. When they won the Memorial Cup, it was, like, a big deal. Guelph Storm is in the area as well. Like, we go watch Guelph Storm games. Use that as an opportunity to engage with, like, especially the youth teams. And who knows, it might not be successful, but at least, like, I might give you a chance to get more people through the gates. Because, I remember one point we played them in July, York United, and we had scored that goal, that corner kick I was telling you about. And I remember turning around, like, I was celebrating, but when I turned around to walk towards the bench, I just look up and I just see blue shirts everywhere. Because, like, all of our friends, family, buddies, former players, former coaches, just wearing Halifax gear that we had brought for them or that they had bought themselves or they got from the players on the team. And you don't see that a lot on the road. Like, other than Forge and York, we saw a couple of Halifax fans in Ottawa. It's tough for away fans to travel. Yeah. But if you're the home team, like, you got to have home people out. Yeah. Put your last year's uniforms on sale, get them out to whatever, Winners or Marshalls, whatever it is. Like, these people have to be wearing your stuff. They have to be showing up to your events. And it's not just unique to York. Like, there's a lot of markets that don't sell out. Like, they don't have jammed houses. Yeah. Like, Calgary is amazing when they're full. Forge just has such a big stadium. Yeah, that's like the lower bowl will be packed. Yeah. But the upper bowl's not packed. And you lose a little bit there. You lose a little bit when you go to Valor because it's a CFL stadium, so it's huge. Big. Yeah. So even though there's whatever, they said 1,200 people the one game we were there, it felt like 12 because they're scattered all over the place, and the stadium's so big. Like, you can hear the other coach, and you can have dialogue with them. You can hear everything.
There's their tactics.
Yeah. And with us, like, it sounds biased, but you go to our place and it's rocking. Like, we get 6,500 people, 6,000 people. It is packed. Like, my buddies that have all, like, flown out there, are already like, the schedule came out on Tuesday, and they're like, "Hey, I'm coming July, I'm coming April, I'm coming
good.
August."
All right, when are we going, boys?
Guys, whenever you want, I got tickets for you guys.
Awesome.
I'm like, it's a vibe.
No, we'd love to. Yeah, we love making content with some of the teams too. We Forward United, and like it's again, like, it's not just the fans showing up. It's also kind of our job too to kind of keep growing that sport here in Canada, and that's the reason why we're doing this to begin with, and why we have you here is not just having, showing up to games, but having conversations and getting the community involved. Who's ever watching this can now support or start watching some Halifax games, whatever it is. That's that's what our job is, and that's what we put on ourselves. So yeah, we got to show up to these games. Let's go record content. Let's go record something. Let's kind of get some interviews with the players, the coaches, whoever it is. So it's true. Yeah, like the teams definitely need to like start pushing to not just make the money, but just start building that community and building relationships with anyone and everyone. Definitely. What else we got, boys? Yeah, like Halifax, I think kudos to you guys. You guys have done an amazing job this season, and coming up again, it's best of luck. But I want to get a little bit into more like the Canadian level and have a little bit to pick your brain a little bit there, and kind of like again see where now that obviously you're obviously focused on Halifax. That's definitely your goal now. What kind of is like your future going into the next chapter in your life? Again, you're still young. There's still obviously many more years to come for yourself and your career. Some Canada stuff here, James. Do you have some questions you want to ask?
No, yeah, I think obviously, mentioning a few of the players that we talked about earlier, Kamal Miller, Alistair Johnson, Dane Sinclair. These are some players that obviously you coached and now went on to that kind of national level. We saw them play, obviously in the World Cup, potentially a Copa America this year, and then obviously another World Cup to come in 2026. We have seen some struggles with the Canadian national team when it comes to coaching now. Obviously, they don't really have that kind of solid figure to kind of take them into that next chapter.
Because Bordiello's still an interim, right? Interim?
Yeah, I think Biello's in there as kind of an interim coach. So what do you think is kind of missing for that national team program, in your opinion? Obviously, now as a coach, you've had that kind of professional experience. You've seen some players in the CPL that obviously represent their nations as well. So what do you think is kind of that next step for Canada in terms of coaching?
Just from the outside looking in, I thought it was like it's been a turbulent time, obviously, with Herdman leaving, and then all the stuff happening with the CSA, and then their general secretary that they hired ends up like not taking the job the day she was supposed to start. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Anytime like there's instability, like I think back to like Real Madrid when they had the Galacticos, there's so much instability that they didn't win as much as they thought they would win because the instability from the top like filters down eventually. And to speak on Biello, I have a lot of admiration for Biello. I just talked about going through the mud. That guy's been through the mud in Canadian soccer. Like he's worked at like CF Montreal before when it was called Montreal Impact and stuff. Like he's been on the national team as an assistant coach. He knows the ins and outs. For me, there's nobody better but him in terms of like theoretically. Then he goes and brings in his own guys, which are also very highly respected, Carmasacco being one of them. And they're guys that are like entrenched in the fabric of Canadian soccer. There is no reason why they can't be successful. If they're going to get support from the top down, those guys, I think, will get us where we need to go. I think where maybe there needs to be a changing of the guard on the field could possibly be a big turning point for them, because I'll just use an example. Like Biello would have worked with these guys during Herdman's cycle.
Yeah.
There might be guys he's loyal to that got them to the World Cup that might have kind of, I don't want to use the word expired because it sounds harsh, but their role might have to change now. They might have to, bring them, but now they're a backup, or they're a guy on the 26th man on the roster, the 23rd man on the roster, or now they're imparting all their knowledge and experience to the new kid that's coming through.
Definitely.
And I think, I want to, as a fan of Canadian soccer, I want to give Biello and his staff, this is your job to have or to lose, but full support to them. I hope and I know it sounds bad because Trinidad, one of their players is our captain, Andre Rampersad. So they're playing.
That's cool. I didn't.
Would it be nice to see Rampy at Copa? Sure, but I'd rather have him at Halifax and have Canada at Copa.
So what are you gonna do to help out Canada? No kidding.
Don't let him play. Don't let him.
None of that.
You're not going international duty.
He's not giving him no tips, no nothing. He's on his own for that game. And I'm going to sit back as a fan and watch that game. But I really, really hope that they qualify because, and then not just qualify, like don't give Biello the full time. Let him go into that Copa, give him a tournament. Like, no disrespect to Herdman, but he coached our women's team before he took them in. And we gave him time.
Yeah.
Like, he needed time. I think they lost to Haiti, his first Gold Cup. We lost to Haiti like 3-1 or something. I could be wrong, but I remember there was a little struggle at the beginning there. And then for World Cup qualifying, man, they couldn't get a decision wrong. They were so good. So not much has changed in terms of personnel, but maybe that's what they need. Maybe they do need a little refreshing in the lineup, a little refreshing in the roster. But theoretically, the staff should be able to pull this through because they've been in there before.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think another cheeky question that we kind of have, obviously, you and Patrice have been, together at Vaughan, together now at Halifax. Somewhere down the line in the future, do you guys ever think that you can be potentially coaching that national team, whether it's alongside Halifax and you're coaching the national team as well? Do you guys think that's something that you can ever see yourselves doing?
I mean, that'd be amazing. I don't know if it's not like FIFA where you can hold club or EAFC is bad enough. I don't know. It's a secretly, like quietly, it's a goal of mine, like a professional goal of mine to wear that badge, like on a jacket, on a training top, on a golf shirt, whatever they want to give me. But I'm not sure if that's his ambition, but it's a beautiful start. If that was an opportunity, it would definitely be something that, would fill me with a great source of pride. But more importantly, it'd be something that, you'd want to be like this Halifax job. We want to be as good as we possibly can be at this job because we want Halifax to be successful.
Exactly.
I don't want to do this job thinking, I want to be really good because after that I'll go to TFC or after that I'll go to Vancouver. Like, no, I want to be really good now where I am.
Get those roots.
Those opportunities will come if we do a good job. Like, that's not why I want to do a good job. Yeah. So if we ever do get that opportunity, obviously that would be like incredible. As Canadian born, first generation of my family, like grew up playing the sport in this country, started coaching in this country, worked with players that represented this country on the men's and women's side. It would be a huge source of pride to be able to wear that badge.
Yeah, you've been there from the beginning for some of the players actually at the national team level, so you can definitely see you built a relationship with some of those players where, it kind of gives you a little sense of like, not pride, but like, you feel nice inside.
Full
circle. Yeah. So like even now looking back at like that kid volunteering at Laurier and where you're at now, did you expect that as like back then, or like, what would you tell your younger self now? Like, as it's hard because like you kind of did everything right, but like what would you tell your younger self?
Ending it off with a deep.
Yeah, that is deep. I'd probably tell myself to like enjoy the path a bit more. So to give you an idea of what my mindset was at the time, like I did my children's, youth, and senior diplomas like on back-to-back weekends, like to coach, right? And I thought I was like, I'm gonna go do my provincial B next and my national A next and all this stuff. And then my whole thing was like, I want to get to do my UEFA courses. Like I was doing these coaching courses to go to Europe to be able to do that. And man, then after doing the Canadian ones, I didn't get into provincial B like 2 years in a row. Courses canceled. Too many. We accidentally overbooked it, whatever. So then I looked into the U.S. and it was like a godsend. I go to the U.S. to do my national C. I meet the guy that was my instructor that ended up getting me into my UEFA B course in Ireland. I do my national B. Gordon Miller, Canadian guy in Virginia. He was my instructor. The guy was an amazing mentor for me, and I can still contact him now if I needed help. I go do my national A. I meet Serge De Luca. He brings me to Vaughan. Like, it was like a blessing in disguise to be able to do that. So if I were to sit back and look at my younger self, it'd be like, enjoy the process. Don't try to rush and tick all these boxes because they say you need to coach OPDL. You have to have your national B. Well, I had my U.S. national A at 27 years old. I didn't do any of my licenses in Canada. Yeah. They gave me an equivalency because I had my U.S. But then when I went to Europe, I didn't have any Canadian licenses. I had my U.S. licenses, and that's how I was able to get there. So I would have said, like, enjoy the ride. Don't try to skip steps. Don't try to rush the process because it sounds corny because we've heard it so much, but it literally is about the journey, like not about the destination. I learned way more, as you guys mentioned earlier, in the day-to-day than I would learn in a 9-day course or a 10-day course or a year-long course. Like the day-to-day stuff is where you get all the experience, where you get all the trials and tribulations. It's not in a classroom, and it's not, in theory. It's not, watching Zoom. During the pandemic, I was doing my courses, logging in at 4 a.m. because Ireland is 5 hours ahead. So they're starting at 9.
Yeah.
I'm starting at 4. And then I got this Irish guy logging in going, Jordy, why is it so dark back there? And it's like I'm logging in, and my window and my condo is like
pitch black.
Open.
Yeah.
It's pitch black. But that's, that's part of the journey, and I enjoyed it. But that's not where it happens. The journey happens on the field through all those experiences, meeting all those coaches and coaching all these kids.
Amazing. Before we end it off here, we always have one question we have all of our guests kind of answer. Who is your GOAT? Can be just GOAT in general. And I know people love to say Messi or Ronaldo, but it's just your GOAT. It can be player, coach, like you said. I think at the beginning of the episode, I'm not sure if was that part of the episode? Yeah. Right? But who's your GOAT? Like, who do you look at and be like, that's the GOAT for me?
The GOAT for me, like the reason why I reached out to you guys in the first place was because I watched another interview you guys had with Owen Hargreaves and him speaking about being in a tunnel with Luis Figo. My passion, my everything that I have for the sport came from watching him. I thought he was the most graceful player. Like, shout out to Rui Costa as well because he's a Benfiquista, but I didn't really watch Figo at Sporting. I'd only watched him when he had already moved to Barcelona, and he was like our first kind of like global star in my generation, by the way, not like Paulo Futre, Eusebio. Yes, I know, but in my generation, Figo was like the first guy that I could watch on TV, see him on a regular basis. And then, Pat's a Barca fan, so he hates Figo and he hates that he left to Real. I was low key like proud of him because I'm going, Barcelona wasn't where Real was at that time. Like 2006 Barca, sure, like stay for that. But he was there when, they're getting Brazilian Ronaldo, Zidane himself, Beckham, Roberto Carlos, Raul. Like their team was amazing, and like it was literally the Harlem Globetrotters of football. Like that was like my guy. And then, man, Euro 2000, his performances, the goal he scored against England, like the crosses he was putting into assist goals, he like ignited a fire that ended up leading to what it became after watching Jose Mourinho run down the touchline at Old Trafford. That stuff kind of like added up. A goal for me as a player was Figo. Figo was my guy.
Awesome. Again, like, appreciate you for coming by. I've learned a lot today. Had actually one of the probably better conversations we've had with someone in the studio. It was amazing. And it's definitely like Daniel was saying, it's interesting for you and just us ourselves. Obviously, the viewers get some knowledge off of this. People watching, people listening, but even for myself, like just gain the back end of the football culture here in Canada, right? And what it really takes to kind of be professional coach where you're at now. And again, like it's cool that we're seeing in our own eyes. And again, at our age, from where it started to where it is today, we're definitely heading into the right direction. And Canada is definitely in good hands. And there's definitely thanks to people like you, coaches like you, and throughout the whole nation, really. So again, thank you so much for coming by.
Appreciate you.
Had a great conversation, and good luck in the season. Sorry, before we end, anything else you want to like kind of plug in? Just kind of last
shout outs.
Any shout outs to Patrice?
The shout outs was, I think I name dropped everybody.
We'll have a list for you guys, a full name drop.
We want to be everybody's like second favorite team. So if you're Napolitano, Milanista, Benfiquista, Sportingista, whatever you support, Halifax should be your second favorite team. You have two local guys that moved out there, brought two other local guys with them to play, had relatively a successful first season, but we want to fly the flag for everybody that, like you said, came through our, nothing was handed to us, everything we took, like we earned everything that we got. So, we got to be your second favorite team. If you need merch, anything, reach out. I'll send your address in the DMs. I'll help you out, no problem.
Oh, awesome. Again, well, James, send it off for us.
Yeah, awesome, Jordan. Thanks again for stopping by. This was a great conversation. Kind of getting, like you said, the in-depths, in and outs of coaching in Canada, growing the game, but also what it takes. Like you said, become a professional coach. So thanks again for coming by. And you know who we are.
Be the culture, boys. Be the culture. Ciao, ciao. Ciao, boys.
See ya.